Hey everybody. Thanks very much for being here. Very thankful that it's not as hot as it was yesterday. Otherwise, I can only imagine what it would feel like down here. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys today about. So I'm Alex. I'm the COO of a project called Aleo, but I'm not here to talk about that yet. I'm speaking about that a little bit later. But I'm here to talk about something called the ZPrize, which is not an Aleo initiative. It's not an Anoma initiative. It's not any one company's initiative. It's something that we're doing together to accelerate the future of zero-knowledge cryptography. So I'm really excited to share more about that effort over the next few minutes with you. So, okay, so generally, what the motivation behind doing this collaboration. So I guess maybe quickly, what is the ZPrize? So it's a collaboration between 32 companies across the zero-knowledge space, sort of modeled after the XPrize, for those of you who are familiar with that. So it's kind of like generational problems, and you put some money behind some prizes that you think might kind of move the needle in one direction or another, or at least, well, in the direction of development to hopefully make these technologies more practical sooner. So yeah, and one of the problems that inspired this effort was that teams like Anoma, Aleo, Aztec, Mina, and it's just a handful of the teams that are sponsoring, are in-house doing a ton of development of like things that are pretty low level and transferable across across teams, across proof systems. And the thought was to try and inspire people to work together on these problems that were relevant to basically anyone who is using zero-knowledge cryptography. And so that's basically how the ZPrize came about. So like I said, it's an industry-wide competition. The XPrize was the inspiration. And the key thing for this is, the requirement. I guess the model of the ZPrize is as a competition where sponsors, one of which is Anoma, and I'm going to bring up Adrian in a minute. But the format is sponsors put up money, and then applicants apply to try and solve these problems to earn the pot, and all of that work gets open sourced to hopefully create a foundational library for some of these lower level primitives that make up zero knowledge proofs, and hopefully therefore inspire the next generation of protocol innovation. Cool. So here's the goals of the ZPrize. So for most of you, I think in the room are probably developers, so you probably know that zero knowledge proofs, under the hood, there's a lot of different algorithms that are going on. And so the idea of ZPrize is basically like peel back a layer from like, okay, Plonk and Marlin and all these like high-level proof systems and look at, for the most part, lower-level primitives like multiscalar multiplication, fast Fourier transforms, those types of things, and trying to accelerate those lower-level building blocks so that you can build up to a faster than implementation of Plonk or Marlin or whatever it may be. Cool. So the way it's broken down, and by the way, this effort started officially in May. And proud to say that so far we have 70 different competitors from across the world competing for, like I said, $7 million worth of total prizes that was sponsored by 32 companies. And it's broken down into two kind of sections. We have the open division, which the idea there is like really focusing on problems that apply across the board. So an example of an open division prize is, like I said, multiscalar multiplication, which for pairing-based ZK snarks account for the majority of the computation. So most of the work that you're doing is you're computing these MSMs. And so that there's a prize specifically about increasing, throughput of producing multiscalar or computing multiscalar multiplications, which again is relevant to really anyone using pairing-based snarks. And so that's the idea of the open division, is that you kind of get collaboration across teams, and multiple teams come together to sponsor it. In fact, the one I just referenced, I think there's 5 sponsors from across, 5 different sponsors for that prize. And yes, that's sort of supposed to be more of a collaborative one. And then the team division is one where, say Aleo has a specific, hey, we have this one specific algorithm that we want to accelerate. That's sort of what the team division is for. So, kind of keep room for both a collaborative effort as well as like individual team bounties effectively. So here's the open division prizes. Like I said, this kicked off in May, and we've got a lot of progress on this so far. So the MSM NTT acceleration. So this is, again, these are like kind of the lower level primitives for zero knowledge proofs. Accelerating those, and that's sponsored by Aleo. We've got a prize that's focused on doing the same thing except in WASM. So as opposed to like the first prize, which is really focused on accelerating those on a server type environment or runtime. This one, the second prize, is about doing the same thing, but in a WASM type runtime, which is what runs in your browser. So more applicable to a client device that maybe is computing a proof. Like if you're running a browser and you want to compute a proof in your browser, that would be applicable there. Some relevant to Plonk-up, which is Plonk is a protocol that many teams are using now. And there's some other things that, again, are kind of relevant across the board. For the team division, again, like I said, this is some more specific stuff, specifically for Aleo. And I guess the one I want to highlight here, because I think it's actually relevant for more than just Aleo, is accelerating verification. So a lot of times the focus on optimization is on the prover, because typically in most of these protocols, the prover is kind of heavier weight as a part of the system. But there are cases where verification becomes a bottleneck, and you're starting to see this in some ways in the rollup context where verification is very costly, and so if you can have a more efficient or faster verifier, you could potentially pack more into a rollup transaction in a block. So so anyway, that's one that we're pretty happy to sponsor. This is something that's directly relevant to Aleo, because for us, effectively every transaction on Aleo is kind of like a rollup transaction. But again, like this year, these team division prizes are kind of specifically about the individual projects and what they're doing. I'm about to bring up Adrian so he can talk about the Anoma one, so I'm not gonna ruin the surprise there. But this is running for the next 3 months and ideally beyond, because again, the hope for this is to have an organization to basically come together, or under the roof of which people can come together and collaborate to build this technology. I think fundamentally what unites all of us, we all use different proof systems and primitives, and we have different, branding and everything like that. And all the projects in the ZK space differ in important ways, and that's great. But I think what unites all of us is a belief that this technology is going to fundamentally be transformational. And I think no matter how much we each do independently, I think we'll only move as an industry as far as we can collaborate together. And that's the idea of this, is to be basically neutral ground where we can come up with these innovations together, kind of put some incentive behind it, and then hopefully build this infrastructure that can help all of us, like I said, make this technology practical sooner. Cool. I said all this. Adrian, why don't you come on up and, we're going to kind of a little bit impromptu. We decided to not do slides.
All right.
But I'm gonna do a little fireside chat. You want to sit down? I kind of want to sit down.
Good to be back.
Welcome back. Long time. Hopefully you had a drink. So Anoma, we're very proud to feature as one of the gold sponsors of the ZPrize, and Adrian and his team in general have been extremely supportive of this effort and done a lot of work to make it happen. And so I want to give Adrian a chance to kind of give his perspective on this. So maybe first, my first question is, what do you think in general? What was your reaction to this when you saw it was announced? And I guess, what do you think of the ZPrize?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy, and big thanks to Aleo here for actually pushing ZPrize forward. I mean, you guys were the driving force behind getting this entire competition together and getting it off the ground. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we have some very general prizes in the open division to just focus on making Plonk-up faster effectively, and then some very specific ones to Namada, which is we want to get very fast browser-based verifiers for Groth 16, for our specific second Groth 16. So I think it's a good idea. I think we are currently still behind in terms of how good the hardware and as well as the software is for both the verification as well as the proving. And especially as soon as the provers get way faster, we can do a lot more generalized compute that people can submit generalized proofs that they generate in browser, for example.
Yeah. So you mentioned something there that I actually neglected to mention, but it's important, is that one of the dimensions here where competitors are really innovating is around implementing some of these algorithms in hardware where it maybe hasn't been implemented before, right? So either optimizing a GPU to do lots of MSMs, or having an FPGA compute NTT or FFTs. And so I guess there's a lot of hardware startups focusing on the ZK space now. I'm going to ask you a little bit of a tough question. What do you think? Is GPU acceleration or FPGA acceleration going to be the future for ZK snarks in terms of hardware? What's your gut tell you?
I think it depends.
Classic answer.
Right. I think short term, GPUs are going to. I don't know. If we get to the point where, we spoke about this with Olaf and Howard here, where once Intel starts shipping specific instruction sets that that effectively are almost like an FPGA, but like in an Intel CPU, at least I can kind of think about it this way. I think at that point, like specialized hardware will win. In the short term, no one is going to start buying these FPGAs. It's going to be on GPUs.
Do you think in the next 5 years we'll see the development of a ZK ASIC? I guess what you're kind of saying, like, if Intel kind of integrates some of these instructions, then that maybe is a weaker form, but an ASIC in the sense of a Bitcoin miner ASIC for ZK proofs.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually hope not even, because I think it'd be, like, you have this problem with even Bitcoin miners that once you need specialized hardware, people have a massive game theoretical edge over the general population. So actually I hope it remains in commoditized hardware. And we just have very fast implementations on like off-the-shelf hardware.
So maybe this is a good transition for you to talk a little bit more about the prizes that you guys are sponsoring, because you mentioned one of them is specifically about browser-based verification, right? And maybe, yeah, just if you can tell us a little bit more detail about what those are and why they matter to Anoma.
Yeah, so I mean, the Team Division prize is very simply if you can optimize the MASP circuit for Groth 16 as much as possible to run in WASM. That's wonderful because the faster that is we can put it on even lower performance edge devices effectively. Not the verifier, the prover. So where like a shitty phone should be able to generate a proof for the MASP as quickly as possible. Because that allows people to build wallets that work with Armada that can run on low quality hardware. So that's sort of very simple. It's an established proof system. It's a relatively straightforward circuit. And so the ask is very specific. And then more generally on the Open Division, we are using PlonkUp for pretty much all of our circuits. So if you can optimize the hell out of this, it's also wonderful. It makes generalized compute it makes a lot of things, a lot of kind of circuits you can write that use PlonkUp a lot faster.
Nice. Well, I think we're actually out of time. So we got to move the schedule along. But someone should ask Adrian during the break what he thinks of the different flavors of Plonk, or Luke Pearson if he's around, because Plonk is a very prolific ecosystem. There's a lot of different flavors out there, and I think everyone has opinions about which of them will be, I think, the future. So
Indeed.
Good question for the break. Go find this guy. It's pretty easy to find, as you can see. That is it for my slides. I guess the last thing to highlight is I mentioned there's a lot of teams supporting this. Here's a few. Of particular note, I'm proud to say that we got AMD and Samsung, so some two manufacturers of hardware that are supporting this, which hopefully goes to show all of you that people outside of just the Web3 conference circuit actually are interested in zero knowledge and believe in its potential. So yeah, really happy to have collaboration with them. Thank you very much for listening to my talk.